I honestly still can't believe this interview happened, but yes, I spoke to Mario Andretti the other week as you are viewing it. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce this interview. Mario, for those who don't know, I mean, how do you not know Mario Andretti? But if you don't, he is one of the most successful drivers in the history of motorsport, a former F1 champion, IndyCar champion, Indy 500 winner, among many, many other honours. He was an absolute pleasure to speak with. He was absolutely fantastic. We spoke about his new role with Cadillac Racing. We spoke about his longevity in motorsport, his achievements, his heroes growing up, his relationships with the likes of Enzo Ferrari and Colin Chapman, and we could have spoke for hours and hours. It was such an incredible experience, and I've got to thank all you guys for making this possible, all your support on this channel, on all of our social medias and everything like that. You've allowed us to get this profile, to be able to approach people like Mario Andretti and get an interview with him. And I'm going to stop talking now because you've come to listen to Mario, and I absolutely enjoyed listening to him. He was on top form. He was such an incredible interview to have, really. Fantastic. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you to Mario for agreeing to do this interview. And yeah, let's dive in.
Formula One world champion, multiple IndyCar champion, winner of the Indy 500, Daytona 500, 24 hours of Daytona, 12 hours of Sebring, among many, many other honours. Who am I talking about? Well, it can only be one man, Mario Andretti, and it is my absolute honour and pleasure to be virtually sitting down with you today on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean for this interview today. Mario, first of all, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us today. How are you? How is life treating you right now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, George. Life is wonderful. It's all good here on this side, and looking forward to a lot of good things in the future. So that's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to look back on the past when I speak to somebody like you, and don't worry, we will do that. But I wanted to instead take a look a bit to the future. So for those that don't know, Cadillac will become the 11th Formula One team next year on the grid, and Mario has joined. I believe you are like an executive advisor. Just wanted to ask how that's all going and everything, and how that kind of materialized.
Well, I don't know about that executive thing, but I will be involved to some degree. Obviously, there's a lot of interest there. My son Michael started this whole project, and I'm going to be part of it as an advisor to some degree, especially on the driver's side, which is the only part that interests me. It's always been that way. Only the driving side of the sport, and that's it. That it will be a home for me in Formula One again, and so there's so much to look forward to. There are a lot of good things going in that respect, as the team is just flourishing, if you will, on all fronts. And so, yeah, work to do, but things that we all look forward to.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. I just wanted to ask how involved as well. Obviously you're involved with the team. I just gave you a little promotion there. Didn't mean to do that, but I'm sure you won't complain too much. But how involved is Andretti Autosports in the running of the team? I know it's under the Cadillac banner, but obviously you're involved. I mean, how much Andretti DNA, for lack of a better term, will be in this Cadillac team when they hit the grid next year?
Well, actually, everything that was in place before Michael stepped aside is still in place, if you will. And there was a choice to be made on his side, and but the spirit of us will always be there, obviously, and I'm going to be part of it. So to some degree, we are going to be very proud, hopefully, of this project. But again, just the fact that we brought about Cadillac involvement, which is historic in itself. General Motors was never officially part of Formula One in its history, and now it is. And their commitment, I think, is something that brings a smile to my face, quite honestly, because of what it will, I think, bring to the sport. Another dimension, if you will, and we all know that all the different disciplines of the sport, can only thrive if manufacturers are involved, and so to add another manufacturer of that level, I think is a good thing. So again, like anything, it's great to have positives to look forward to.
Absolutely, yeah. And things are very positive right now in the States when it comes to Formula One and its popularity. I mean, Drive to Survive is often cited as the catalyst, and I feel like that is part of it. But have you yourself noticed how much this interest has increased? I mean, the fact that we'll have two American teams on the Formula One grid and a real possibility of an American driver soon as well back on the Formula One grid, it can only be a good thing for the sport in the States.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. Just in the last couple of years, the way that the interest, how it just blossomed, in Formula One here, and with having three events, which is obviously that's a first as well, in any country that, as far as I know. And well attended events, so again, yeah, this is it's a bubble that you want to try to keep feeding, obviously, and I think everyone is trying their best to do that, but it's there and it's for real. And so it bodes very well for the future.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And you rightly bring up there's three races now in the States, which is, yeah, that I remember not that long ago there wasn't any for a while after Indianapolis in 07. So yeah, it's great to see three races in the States these days. I saw a quote the other day from the team principal of Cadillac, Graham Loudon, basically saying along the lines of the fact that there's no expectations, there's no goals in 2026 for Cadillac because it's going to be the first year in Formula One. All the other teams will have done, at least 10 seasons. Even Haas have done over 10 seasons at that point since they joined the sport. Would you kind of go along with that thinking as well? 2026, it's a new start for everybody with the regulations, but is that something you'd agree with as well?
Well, you have to be realistic. I mean, it's no use going out there. Oh, we're going to do this and that. It's just we're going to do the very best possible, and then you obviously you hope for the best. That's the objective. That's what everyone's objective is. But no use saying we're going to accomplish this, or accomplish that, accomplish that. Whatever will happen, I think. If it's not good enough to what our own private expectations are, we better work harder, So, but the team, everyone is trying to bring together the best talent you can find and try to lure people, on our side. And I think we've been fairly successful in that respect, in my opinion. A lot of good people, a lot of experience, and that's it. I mean, it's like anything else. You try to arm yourself with the best you possibly can. It's all about people, and go forward from there. It's everybody's trying very, very hard and very serious about the commitment, and it's a long-term commitment. So it's yeah, that's a big thing too, when you're saying, there's a long-term commitment here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cadillac as well, committing to eventually making their own power units as well,
Yeah,
in a few years after that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and mentioning the power units as well, what do you make of them for 2026? Because we've got we've got a completely different shift in terms of, going more towards electric power 50/50 split with that. We've got active aerodynamics, they're getting rid of DRS. There's a lot of big changes in there. What's your kind of take on the direction that F1's going with this?
Well, it's obviously it's almost starting from scratch. Everything, chassis, power unit, everything new, and that's what makes the sport interesting. You have tremendous challenges. Everyone has challenges ahead of them, and it's how you react to it. That's going to pay you back. But that's the way the sport has been forever, and so no one can really assess the fact that this is going to be better or worse than what we're experiencing. It's just everybody's going into just new, it's a new era, if you will, in many ways. But that's it. That's what it's all about. That's good. That's good stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, Formula One is always evolving, always changing. I wanted to take you back a few years now as well. Actually, I remember I think it was 2022. Zach Brown offered you the opportunity to drive a modern Formula One car, a modern McLaren Formula One car. Um, how was it stepping back into an F1 car for the first time in, I presume, many years? How was that? I mean, I watched the video of you at COTA driving it around. You certainly seemed to enjoy yourself, but how did you find that experience?
Well, I was obviously, yeah, it was something that I cherished tremendously. That he trusted me with that. I just wish that I would have had the opportunity to do a little better job in the cockpit in setting myself up. They just put me in there, and didn't have any proper seat fitting, if you will. So we just did this and that, and I couldn't really hustle the car the way I really intended to, because I didn't want to, have a problem, because I didn't have the feel that I really wanted to. But everything that I got out of it is what I expected, if you will. And so it was a joyful ride, and certainly owe a great deal to Zach. But I wanted to make sure that I brought the car back in the same shape that he gave it to me. But I was, trust me, I wanted to have the opportunity to do a little more hustling. But like I said, the cockpit environment was not nowhere near what I needed.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. I mean, the quick answer to this question I'm about to ask is a lot, but how much have things changed since the last time you went in a Formula One car before that? I mean, you mentioned hustling. You can't really hustle Formula One cars now. They're kind of on rails, but I suppose back when you were driving them, it was a bit different.
Uh, yeah, everything evolves, but I've stayed current, and then I've been in, I've done some testing in today's IndyCar and so forth. So I'm not, I wasn't totally overwhelmed, if you know what I mean. Obviously, you cannot compare, to the last Formula One that I drove, like in say 1982. But something, as far the power to weight ratio, the way I felt it, and so forth, there was no surprise whatsoever. So it's not that was totally away from it, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to explain it.
Mm.
But nevertheless, it was something that definitely cherished. To experience it in real time. Yeah. I mean, if I'm offered tomorrow, I'm ready to step in and give it another go somewhere, but do it properly. I'll spend much more time in getting the cockpit, because I'm very finicky about that, as you can imagine. I think it's everything as far as the feel of the car, and I know what I need in the cockpit. So I think I would have needed more time to get that done properly.
Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, beware. Mario Andretti is coming for your seats. Oh, I mean, I just find that incredible. I really, really do, Mario, honestly. And one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about, because this is genuinely one of the questions I think if I always thought to myself, if I ever get the chance to interview someone like Mario Andretti, I have to ask him about longevity because your longevity at the top level of motorsport, it was something incredible. I mean, I knew you raced all the way until the 90s in IndyCar, but I found that you raced in Le Mans in the year 2000, I think it was. You were 60
Yeah.
years of age. I mean, to put it into context for people that don't know, in 1966, when you competed in your second Indy 500, you were racing against the likes of Graham Hill, Jim Clark, and Sir Jackie Stewart. When you raced in your final Indy 500 in 1994, there was the likes of Jacques Villeneuve, Nigel Mansell, and of course your son Michael in the field as well. I've just got to ask. I mean, how did you do it for so long? Was there a particular routine you had? Like, what's your secret to it? Because people talk about Fernando Alonso these days in his early 40s and Sir Lewis now as well, like asking how did they do it? How did they keep racing? But you've done that many years ago to an even greater age.
Well, George, the only way I can explain that is a pure desire and love for the sport. You know, you have no idea. I could never get enough. As you could see that, you know, throughout my career, I always say that, you know, I even after reflecting, you know, I realized how much I appreciated the fact that I had a young family, how my wife just never made me feel guilty for being so selfish to do so much. And then I could spend, you know, a lot of quality time with my young family and my kids. But I did everything my best, you know, to bring them around. I don't know if I'm answering that question, but it's pure love and desire to be in the cockpit. That's all I ever had in my life. I never cared. You know, I owned a team officially in 1968 because the owner passed away at the end of 67 when I in Indy cars. And I didn't like that at all because I wanted to spread around. You know, I had that responsibility, you know, but I wanted to just drive, have that freedom to move around. And even though you know, let's face it, contractually, I had restrictions, but I never obeyed that in any way. You know, I just went. You know, every contract had me. You know, you can only do this, and you need written permission to do this and that and the other. And I never, you know, never questioned, never argued that point. I just let it be in there. I just did what I wanted. I keep saying, I'll give you an example. I've given that many times, but even when I was in Formula One, even you know, when I was going for the championship, I was still driving Indy cars for Roger Penske on weekends off, and then I was doing the IROC series, and I was in Silverstone testing with Lotus, Colin Chapman. And the coming weekend, there was a free weekend in Formula One. So he said, Mario, are you staying in Europe or are you going back home? What are you doing? I said, yeah, no, I'm going back home. I'm racing actually in Michigan this weekend. Well, you can't do that. I said, I know. I said, but I will. You know, so it's, you know, that sort of thing. I spread around. You know, you always have a main contract, you know, commitment, but I took every other opportunity to do, you know, something else if it suited me. And as long as I was there for my contractual obligation, you know, which I always was, the rest of the time was my own. And even though by contract it wasn't, but for me it was. And again, that's the way I operate in my entire career. I mean, you know, when I won Sebring in 67, you know, with Bruce McLaren on a Saturday, on a Sunday, I was in a stock car race in Atlanta, the 500-mile race the next day, you know, which physically it almost killed me, you know, but did I need that? No, but I wanted to, you know, I wanted to do it. So things like that. Earlier, I mean, even early 70s, for instance, I would do Formula One and then come to the States and do a dirt track race. I was going for actually in 74, I won the national championship, on a dirt track series. And I was doing both. I was doing, Formula 5000, Formula One, Indy cars, and dirt track racing. So, and that was the joy that I derived from the sport. The satisfaction that was immense for me to have that opportunity, because most of the time I had the opportunity to be with good teams, with teams that had the quality to bring results. And for me, it was not just venturing into another discipline just to drive. I wanted to try to win. And that was the ultimate goal, always, always, always. And that's what gave me the satisfaction. That's what gave me the drive, to do it. I could never get enough of it. And again, today, every day I wish I was in a race car, so.
Oh, that's incredible. That's fantastic listening to you talk about that with such passion. It's like, I don't know who said it, but it's like if it's got four wheels, a steering wheel, and an engine, I'll drive it, I'll race it, and I'll win it. I don't know who said that. I might have made it up just now, but I think it definitely applies to you with everything that you've done. I mean, it must, again, the answer's probably you can't compare, but what did you enjoy the most? Was it oval racing? Was it circuit racing with Formula One? Was it dirt racing around dirt tracks, endurance? Like, what was the thing that you preferred the most if you had to choose one?
Oh, I could never choose one. I don't think it would be fair for me to even express that. At a given time, that's what I enjoyed. And my biggest actually satisfaction was always to drive a single seater. That was my specialty. And I'm just happy that I was able to do all of that. So I have some knowledge and experience whenever we talk about it. I could talk to anyone, any driver of any discipline, and have some pretty good understanding of what they're specifically going through. And so just to have had those opportunities to me is something that's so dear, because I know just how you have to fight for a good drive and so on and so forth in the business. And to me, all I had to do is express a desire to do it. And I was getting some invitations, and boom, I would take it, and so again, but going back to, if I had to choose just one, I would just rather not even put that in my head. I think, let's face it, my main objective was always single seater. Like Formula One was something, when I always said this, I even told Dan Gurney one time, that in 1963, I was about to win the third feature race of the day. There was a Labor Day, a weekend. And I was getting just ready to be pushed off on a dirt track in Hatfield, Pennsylvania. And what was I thinking about? I was thinking about how wonderful that Dan Gurney just got his first ride in Formula One. And I had Formula One in my head when I was on a third of a mile dirt track in 1963. You see what I mean? You see what I'm talking about? So you see what Formula One is, what really ignited my passion, my love for the sport. And America gave me the opportunity to get into the sport at a very young age when we arrived here from Italy. And but I cannot tell you that Formula One was not reigning supreme in my head as far as the objective throughout my career. Everything, we're going so well here for me at the beginning of my experience of Formula One that I couldn't really engage into it, when I really would have had the opportunity, like early 70s. I was offered, after putting the car on pole, in 68 and so forth at the end of the season, Colin Chapman offered me the first drive, in 1916 and 79. No, 68, 69. And who took and I couldn't do it because of my contracts here in the States and so forth. It was a financial situation, really. And so who took my seat? Emerson Fittipaldi. In 71, when I won, South Africa for Ferrari, my first Formula One race win, and then I won at Ontario, the non-championship race. At the end of that season, he offered me number one drive for Ferrari. I couldn't accept because things were going so well for me here in the States. But Formula One was still in the back of my mind. I said, I got to somehow during my career have to devote full time. And that's when I decided in 1975, still at the advanced age of 35, I figured now it's the time. And it all came true thanks to Colin Chapman and Lotus, so everything, like I said, looking back, maybe I could have done this and that better, but I have no regrets. I think everything that I was hoping, that I was just striving for, happened. And I think I was able to accomplish more than I deserve. I'm grateful, and I keep saying again, millions of times, I count my blessings every day as to the fact that also I was so fortunate to have been spared, serious injury to keep me away, because out of almost 900 races, I only missed 2 races because of injury. So was I blessed or not? I know that I take nothing for granted. Because the decades that I raced, especially the 60s, 70s, part of the 80s, the sport was pretty cruel, toward so many of us, and so many of my friends anyway. And somehow even my brother, he paid dearly at the end of the first season, which affected him the rest of his life. So I know how fortunate I've been. That's all I'm saying. And to go as long as I did, and be spared and still, be able to walk today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, anybody who knows the history of motorsport will know how dangerous those days were when Mario was when you were racing. And I think Sir Jackie said there's a stat that says something like a third of, or a half maybe, of Formula One drivers in the 60s that raced over 3 seasons passed away. Something incredible like that. So it was a very dangerous time for sure. Yeah, we lost a lot of people through that, but thankfully things have definitely improved on that regard for sure. Motorsport it's so incredibly safer compared to what it used to be.
Well, of course, I mean the sport has evolved in the right direction, and obviously everything has been learned over the years, and it's become very responsible. And I said this again, especially as the sport became much more commercial. You have that responsibility to keep it safe, so you don't have negatives. Those fatalities were as negative as it could be. I don't think the sport could have really thrived, could have even existed in modern times, without pursuing the safety aspect vigorously, which it has been, and it still is. It's still a work in progress, which, again, today's drivers are enjoying the best moments in that respect. They have the best chance to retire on their own terms ever. That's a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember, I mean, I'm sure you probably watched it live or saw it when it happened, but things like Roman Grosjean's crash in Bahrain in 2020, I honestly looked at that for those first few seconds and thought he's gone. But then you saw him running out, and that just would not have been possible 10, 20 years ago.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, that's another example that you know he lived to race again and race and doing it well. So it speaks volumes again for what the safety aspect is today.
Absolutely, yeah. Now you mentioned Colin Chapman, obviously the designer. I think maybe the owner of Lotus as well back in the day. I know he was the designer guy who designed the cars back in the day. And you, of course, won your world championship in Formula One in '78 with Colin Chapman's Lotus team. I wanted to ask about him really because he's such a legendary figure in Formula One. I mean, what was he like as a man? And I mean, obviously Lotus were very good, which probably helped. But why was he the man where it was just like, I really want to drive for this guy's team?
Uh, he, he was obviously number one. He was a genius in his own right, for sure. And and I have to tell you that in 1965, when I first got at Indianapolis, because in those days you were there for 3 weeks before the race. So and Jim Clark was there, of course, and Colin, and I really, really wanted to get to know them, and which I did, and and uh, after the race when Jim won and I finished third and so forth, I was rookie of the year. Um, we were saying our goodbyes after the banquet, which is traditional to today, and I said to Colin, I said, Colin, someday I would like to do Formula One. And he looked in my eyes. He said, Mario, when you think you're ready, you call me and I will have a car for you. And that sparked everything for me. He is the one that gave me the first opportunity. 3 years later, when I called him, and then sure enough, he had it there, and we had a pole. The first race out for me, and it was at Watkins Glen, and a lot of people, well, it's your own home track. No, I had never seen Watkins Glen before I got there that weekend. So anyway, so it was another one of them. But I had that, always had that relationship with him, and it was until at the beginning of the 1976 season, which would have been the second season with the Parnelli team, the American team that we entered in 1975. And we had, and actually, of all people, there's Maurice Philippe, who had been one of the team designers at with Lotus. He had been, I brought him to the States, with the team that I was with Parnelli, and he designed a Formula One car. Unfortunately, he designed a 2-year-old car, because that's what he had, and anyway, but we were beginning the second season in 1976 with Parnelli. We were in Long Beach, and they decided that that's it. They were going to pull out of Formula One, and I and they never told me. So one of the broadcasters came to me and said, Mario, he says, what's your reaction that Bell and Parnelli Jones are pulling out of Formula One at this point, right before the start of the race? I had no idea, but anyway, the next day, both of us were. I dropped out. There was a rock or something went through a radiator and so forth, and Colin had probably the worst race that he had in his entire career that weekend. And so the next morning, we're having breakfast. I'm having breakfast by myself at Queensway Hilton Hotel. And he was a couple of tables away from me. He was alone. So we looked at each other, and I joined. And we were both had our chin in our socks, and just commiserating. And I told Colin, I said, Colin, I'm out of a job. I'm out of Formula One, and I don't want to be. He said, Mario, I said, I wish I had a decent car to offer you. I said, but I said, Colin, if you have a seat for me, put me in number one. I said, we will get the car. We will get it going. We'll get it better. And that was the beginning of that absolute, 3 years together that, brought us a championship. And I joined Colin just at the right time when all of a sudden he just came back 100%, with the team without any other distraction, like his boat company, the car company that he started and everything else. He had too much on the table there for him, but he came back 100% Formula One, and I benefited tremendously from that, and that's what gave me that championship. And we really, that's one thing that going back with my relationship, he and I really worked well together as far as the input that I would give and setups and so on and so forth. He understood, what I needed. And that's what it takes. It takes that type of relationship to make things happen properly. I had suggestions, he had, and so on and so forth. So that's how things happen the right way. But going back to as I said, with Colin Chapman, he gave me everything that I dreamed of, as far as the Formula One, and I was there at the right time.
Absolutely, yeah. It must have seemed like such a long way away when you first joined, but you had that belief. You both had that belief, and in the end, it bore fruit.
It worked.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Wants to ask a little bit about Ferrari as well. Now, you had raced kind of in the odd race here and there for Ferrari in Formula One. I think it was the late 60s, early 70s off the top of my head. But you, of course, came back for that two off appearance technically, but the first of those two races in 82 at Monza, where you got pole position and you got a podium. Having not raced that much in Formula One for the preceding years. I know you came back for Williams as well earlier in 82, but that just is an incredible story to me. I mean, how did that all happen? Because they always say that Ferrari, or at least Enzo Ferrari, only used to ask once. He never used to ask twice. But in your case, he did. So can you take us back to that time?
Well, here again, another opportunity. I had a great relationship with Mr. Ferrari right from the late 60s on. I drove, as you know, quite a bit of sports cars. I won my first Formula One race, and also, as I told you, I was invited to be to have a number one drive after the 71 season, and we kept in touch. It's just that whenever I was free to go, the seats were fully occupied, and it just never happened. It almost I almost went with Ferrari at the end of the 77 season, believe it or not. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it, but that's how we kept that relation. We kept in touch always. And he offered me a number one drive at the end of the 77 season after I won Monza with Lotus. And my contract that was the last year of my contract with Colin. We had a handshake for a renewal, but I was invited to go with Ferrari, and it's a long story. I don't know if you want to hear it, but it somehow it didn't happen. And then it's good that it didn't, because I won the World Championship the following year, with Lotus. But again, the relationship was alive and well. And then, as you can see, with the tragic season that he experienced in 1982 with Gilles Villeneuve and Didier Pironi, and of course, he had to fill in the seat especially after Pironi, and then he asked me to do the last two races. And Monza, things went well. I had a chance to test the week before, and Fiorano, and I set a record there. So things looked pretty good, and I felt really good in the car. And even though I had been out of Formula One for a full season, that was my first experience also with the new engine formula, turbocharged engine, that 1.8 liter turbocharged engine, which it was like a bomb, like it was no smooth delivery. That either had 1,000 horsepower or nothing under your foot, and it was something really you had to learn. But I loved that, the power that thing delivered, and so anyway, things worked out. So that was my relationship with Ferrari. That it's interesting that I had this, almost. I won the first race in Formula One with Ferrari, and then I drove my very last, races for Ferrari as well, and I would have won Monza. I was leading, and I think it was 6 laps from the end. I lost the turbo on the left bank, so I lost a lot of power, and I was got blown off down the straightaway, and then I salvaged third place, which was good, podium at least, but I could have won that race for sure in Monza. But nevertheless, there was it was a great experience and a good opportunity, and being able to perform like that for Ferrari, you cement a relationship with him. Believe me, he was a true racer, and he didn't smile often, but when he did, it was precious.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I could sit here and talk to you all day about Enzo Ferrari and stuff like that. Maybe we can go more in depth the next time we have a chat. But I wanted to ask as well. I mean, you mentioned about always wanting to get to Formula One. That was always the goal. That was what was always in your mind. But
For sure.
who were the heroes for you growing up? I imagine being born in Italy and coming from an Italian family, maybe Tazio Nuvolari. But who were the heroes when you were growing up?
Well, of course, Nuvolari and so forth, but actually, my real hero became Alberto Ascari,
Ah,
because I was just as a teenager, understood much more, and that's when Formula One, became official. I was 10 years old when Formula One became official in 1950. Farina wins Alfa Romeo, but then Ascari, with Ferrari, it became a magic thing for me, and he was the absolute hero of the moment. He was probably the one that inspired me more than anything. And as I'll include my twin brother Aldo, the same way we both sort of gravitated to that. And so if I have to blame someone for wanting to become a race driver, it was Alberto Ascari for sure.
well, you can blame him. I can thank him. One final question, Mario. We've just caught on you when you were inspired when you were growing up and everything. What kind of advice do you have to people wanting to get into motorsport, whether it's a driver, whether it's as a mechanic or whatever? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, it's like anything, though. I mean, there's. I don't think you could say, okay, if you do this, this, and that, and the other. It has to come within, inside it. If there's something that captures your imagination, and if it really does for real, pursue it. Because that's like anything. You to be able to do something right, do it properly, and then enjoy it, and put all the time, the effort necessary to accomplish it. You have to be captured by, excitement, and then passion. If you have passion for something, just no matter what, the roadblocks made seem like I had to just pursue it and go after it, and the desire will win ultimately. In my opinion, it did for me.
That's very wise words. I really like that. That's a fantastic note to end on. Mario, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I could chat to you all day, but I've got to go get my son from school. You've got to do something else as well. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, George. All the best to you.
And to you as well.
That was great, wasn't it? That was absolutely fantastic. I love that. I love speaking to Mario. Like, it was like speaking to, well, it was speaking to a racing legend, someone who has been in and around motorsport since, the 50s, late 50s. He's been in top motorsport ever since the 60s. He's an absolutely fantastic person to listen to. I hope you enjoyed the questions that I asked. There were some answers there I wasn't really expecting, some ones that really surprised me, but it was fantastic just listening to him at the end of the day. It was a real honor, and like I said, your support on this channel does make things like this possible. I cannot thank you enough for that. At the end of the day, if nobody was watching these videos, if no one was enjoying them, then we wouldn't be able to do things like this. So I really, really appreciate all your support. We're heading towards 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Maybe we've already got to that mark, by the time this video goes out. We've got the largest Formula One newsletter in the world on Substack. We've got Patreon going now as well. I'm putting content on Patreon for free for you guys. All you have to do is become a member, and you can get things like this early. If you're watching this on Patreon, thank you so much. If you're watching this on Substack as well, again, thank you so much. All your support is incredible. You can see it early on Substack as well if you're a paid member on there. And we'll try and do more of these things. Suggest who you want to see in the comments below. We will do our best to try and we will approach these people, and hopefully some of them will agree for an interview. I'd love to interview some more racing legends. If I was to choose one personally, I would love to interview Sir Jackie Stewart. I did meet him a couple of years ago at the British Grand Prix. He is an absolutely fantastic person to speak to, and I would love to sit down with him and interview with him. He'd be my dream personally, just to let you guys know. So we'll try and get him on. I don't know if we'll be able to be honest. But we'll do our best. I'll say Mario came on the show, so maybe that'll encourage him too. But if you've got any suggestions, who was your dream person you want to hear an interview for? In motorsport, a former world champion, a race engineer, anybody. Let me know. Anybody in and around the world of racing, anybody around the world of Formula One, and we'll try and do our best to get them on here on the Formula Reports. But have a fantastic weekend ahead, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And pinch me, man. Pinch me. I'm dreaming. I still can't believe this happened. It is, it just didn't seem possible. Not even a year ago. And here we are. Let's enjoy this ride. This is just the beginning.